Hello.
Fine. Hello?
Hi. How are you? Can
Oh,
you hear?
and I see. Sorry, I think I just had the sound shut off there.
Oh, okay.
There we go.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you. Nice to see you too. It's lovely. It's a beautiful day today. It looks like in Melbourne, sun's out shining. Which is always lovely.
Yeah, I know, especially for a Saturday morning. So it's a good start to the weekend. Um,
Yeah.
and thank you for starting your weekend with me like this.
For sure. I'm so grateful for you giving me the opportunity to come talk to you. I've run into you a few times. You're such a lovely, passionate person, and I think what you've done utilizing our teas is absolutely brilliant. So thank you for inviting me today.
No, thank you. Though I guess today we're here talking about the tea for my rose tea, our special edition collection box with Cargo Crew. So I wanted to tell you quickly how it all started and share that with the audience. I was shooting for Freshly Picked with Simon, and Simon works so closely with Dilmah, and he's so passionate about Dilmah's tea, and he's been out to Sri Lanka, and he was we were talking about all of that. And one of the recipes I was doing for Freshly Picked was exactly this, a rose spice chai. Um, and with this shortbread, this traditional Indian shortbread cookie called naan khatai. So this was a recipe I was sharing on Freshly Picked, and he pulled out one of your tea series teas. And I just remember thinking, it smelled so fragrant, and tea is such a big part of my life, and I'll come into that as well. But it was so fragrant, and I really loved the blend. And it was really special. So when this collaboration was happening with Cargo Crew, and we were making a rose spice chai for this rose apron, you were naturally someone I called up, and I said, "Hey, I absolutely love this blend of tea. This is something I want to share if I'm going to make something or put something out there," and that's how we met.
Yeah, no, and I think it's beautiful, and I think we're very lucky. We work with a number of very passionate people, you yourself, and I think that's what really is in the heart of everything that we do at Dilmah. I mean, I think if anyone who's following along the Dilmah journey, that's one of the things we always talk about is we're a passionate family, business that's really just only focused on tea and not just the regular tea that you drink at home, which we do as well, but also this idea of being tea inspired and thinking about ways you can utilize tea in all these different ways. And I think, one of the beautiful things about you and the recipe you've made is educating Australian consumers as well about the tea culture that exists around the world, because we are in a number of countries globally, and the way people drink tea in the Middle East or the way people drink tea in India or Sri Lanka, very different, very different. And bringing some of those concepts home to Australia, I think is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, I think with this particular thing, something that is a tagline is tea is a way of life. So tea isn't just about how you like your tea, whether it's black or with milk or sugar. Or I think tea, there's a tea for every single occasion, and there's a tea for every time of day. And or it could be to mark special occasions, but it could be that it's used as a remedy. It's used as something as a pick me up as well in the morning, or to relax you. So it's the different blends, and I think even in different blends, it's also the different leaves. So I wanted you to go through, you've got a beautiful display in front of you, go through some of your display so we can talk about, I think, things like the flavor notes of tea, help our audience understand that, but
Sure.
also and the grade and things like that.
Yeah, it'd be great. What I'm gonna do is I have my kettle boiled. I'm just gonna brew my tea, so I have a nice fresh tea to join with you. And I'm actually going to be brewing our 21st anniversary tea that we used for your little collaboration. So I'll let that sit because that's going to have to brew for about 3 to 5 minutes. But
yeah,
I'll get that going while we talk. And I think You know, one of the things that you mentioned is very true, right? Is the whole thing about tea for different occasions. And I must admit, prior to working at Dilmah, I was just your standard English breakfast with milk, you know, the one my grandmother taught me to drink. But as I've learned about tea, you know, I have a rose tea in the afternoon with a cake, or a green tea. I do a Moroccan mint tea iced, you know, in the evening. And I realize all these different ways to utilize tea. But I think the most fascinating thing, if we're talking about tea, is starting off the story where it begins, right? And one of the things I was very fascinated about learning about when I started working at Dilmah was that tea comes from one plant, right? So we have this Camellia sinensis plant, right? And whether it's black tea, green tea, oolong tea, white tea, it all essentially comes from this one plant. And how the flavor changes and the color changes depends on the way that we process it, right? And that starts really where it's grown. And I know Dilhan, and apologies, you know, normally Dilhan would love to join in on this, but he's in Dubai opening one of our tea lounges in the Pullman. But he always talks about tea and wine and the similarities, because everybody knows about the terroir with wine, and you know where it's grown, and the soil and the climate and all that, and how it affects the wine. But tea is extremely similar to that, especially given that it's the same thing. It's one plant, and that leaf, depending on the climate, comes through. And there's some fascinating things with that as well. When we have, you know, crazy bouts of weather with heavy rainfall or hot times or humid, it actually changes the flavor of the tea. And it's why Dilhan and the team in Sri Lanka are tasting thousands of tea every single day to make sure that we have that consistent flavor.
Sorry, tea auctions as well, when you look into the history of tea. So for me, I think because tea is such a big part of the Bengal region, most of the tea is grown in and around the bay. So I think Dilmah is in sort of on the east side, on the west side of Sri Lanka. Where is it, the Nilgiri region there?
Yeah, so we have our main office is actually based in Colombo, but there's actually four, and I'll just come up. There's four key growing regions, and those of you that do buy this lovely kit with Kishwar, you're going to get one of these in there as well, so you can learn a little bit more about the tea. But there's four distinct growing regions that we grow in, and they start from the Yatawata, which is down in the low grown teas, and that's essentially up to 1,000 feet above sea level. And then we move up to the Medawata, the Udawata, and the Ranwata. And essentially, when you think of this as terroir and climate and such like that, the lower grown teas are going to be your more full-bodied, earthy flavored teas, and typically the ones that you'll see in your black teas that we tend to like, especially here in the Western world. And that's actually where the 21st anniversary tea is grown, there in the Yatawata region. But as you move up, you start to get much more lighter flavors, almost mellow, citrusy when you get up to the Ranwata. And it's gorgeous. And I know you had the chance as well from talking to you when we were with Simon to sample our Wata range, right? And Merrill, Mr. Dilmah, as most of us in Australia know, he wanted to teach the world about these four growing regions. And we actually have the Wata range, which takes the same plant grown in the four different regions and process the similar ways to show you the different ways that you get flavor coming from those teas. But this tea right here that we have, and this is the 21st anniversary tea. It's the main ingredient that we've used for that rose spice blend. And the beauty about this is it's got that full dark flavor, which adds that body to the mix. But what also comes is again with the picking. So if you notice here, and I don't know if it's close up, you can see there's very large leaves, right? And it's beautiful large leaf tea. And one of the reasons why we have this ability, so I mentioned already how the growing region can really change the flavor that you have from the tea. But the other one is the size of the tea. Now we're and look at that beautiful mix right there. Just absolutely gorgeous.
Well, it's so fragrant. It's the like, as soon as you open the bag, you can just smell that really floral, beautiful. Yes, with the addition of the spices, the rose petal. But the tea is a very fragrant tea.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, you know, one of the things, and I've been working in food pretty much my whole career in some way or another, and I think people always have to remember taste is obviously one main thing that we eat with, but we also taste with our eyes, and we taste with our nose, and we taste with all our senses. And I think, you know, at Dilmah, we're very proud that we still pick our tea in the artisanal way. So when you go up to our tea gardens, and we're one of the only tea companies in the world that is completely vertically integrated. So we have from the tea garden straight to the cup, and we do a number of amazing, which we'll talk about later, but CSR projects and such in those regions. But we still pick every single one of our teas by hand there with 2 leaves and a bug. So you take, and I've been fortunate as well to be in Sri Lanka and had to experience it. And I must admit, I'm not nearly as quick as the tea pickers. I don't know how they do it so quickly, but they just go up. They just the very little offshoots, right, to get the best flavor, so it's not too harsh and too bitter that you get. So that's why when you go to Sri Lanka, you see pictures, and I know we've shared some on our Instagram channels, you see all the tea gardens, they're all the same height, and people always ask why that's the case. Well, every time they shoot up, we pick those 2 leaves. I've got one that I brewed. You can see it large, but when you actually brew it, like, you can actually see they're the actual tea leaves, right? You can see the leaves. They're not. It's not dust. It's not hard. It's full tea.
It's not
leaves.
manual. I think that was a really important part of when I was here as well, is that sensory aspect of it. It was one, of course, the flavor of this tea. Really, I really loved it. The floral sort of, it really hit you. But I think the way it looked and the way it smelt as well, it's visually very, but it's very sensory in that, like, you really smell it first. Look at the color on that tea.
Yeah, just absolutely gorgeous. You know, one of the things I like it as well, just not to interrupt, but with some of these teas as well, with the larger leaf, you can brew it a little bit less. So we say between 3 to 5 minutes. And if you're not brewing it fully strong, you can actually just enjoy it without milk as well, so straight. So when you're brewing with a tea like yours, we're recommending you brew it for that longer period, right? So you can really get out the flavors. But you can also just decide to drink it just straight, you know, if you decide to brew it in that kind of 3 minute mark.
So,
which is great.
Once I started experimenting with Dilmah's tea while I was creating this mix, I found that this tea really, it makes a beautiful recipe for an iced tea as well. So I've added a rose hibiscus syrup. So I've made hibiscus syrup and I've added the recipe into this pack, but it's a rose hibiscus iced tea, which is really perfect for Christmas as well. And I think this particular tea would make a great base for tea-based cocktails, which is something I think that needs to be explored more. People are drinking, Earl Grey beers and tea cocktails, and it's so lovely. So I think it's something that needs to grow in the market more, and hopefully people will experiment with these sorts of blends of tea, because they're so lovely to taste, and they're such a good base for other recipes.
And I think that's and just before, because I will show a couple of the reasons, but I think that's the main thing that we've been focusing on so hard at Dilmah. And I'm actually wearing my School of Tea apron, and we're very proud of our Dilmah School of Tea, because for a number of years we've been investing in educating consumers on how to use tea, in a variety of different ingredients. And you're right, cocktails are amazing. And what comes to mind right now with what you're mentioning is doing like a rose hibiscus tea sour. So, you get some gin, a little bit of lemon, you get your hibiscus syrup in, you brew some tea, maybe even infuse your gin, using your tea and build up a sour, which just adds a little bit of that extra flavor, and you still get some of those antioxidants as well, which is great.
But all the botanical notes, and so it's just so much more complex than a different mixer. I think tea adds another layer of complexity to any cocktail or any drink.
No, definitely, and I think this 21st anniversary tea, it's actually funny. It came out for 21 years of Dilmah, and it actually got removed from the market over a number of years, but the Aussies just love the tea. So we're one of the only regions left here in the world that actually still sell this 21st anniversary tea. And it comes in these big 1 kilogram packs because the people that drink it, they love it. They don't want it in small packs. And we've used it in a number of, we've done it with yourself as well. With Pirate Light, they use 200 kilograms in their tea and Vickies that they use for this tea for that.
Century tea as well.
Yeah, so when Pirate Light did the first collaboration with us, which was the Dilmah Tea and Vickies, they used the 21st anniversary tea.
Wow.
I think they made the world's largest tea bag because they had 100 kilograms at a time into the whirlpool, and they used this tea as well. And for those reasons of some of the flavors that you get within the tea, and not trying to get too much of that extra bitterness that you can get from some teas. So, I think this is a good segue, right? Like when we're talking about the different sizes of the leaf, it's all about surface area, right? Mm-hmm. So the smaller the tea leaf, essentially, the easier it is going to be to burst into the water and make a stronger tea. So you can get, for instance, a tea which we call like dust. So, I'll come a little bit closer, but this is essentially like a dust. So it honestly is just
almost like
the powder. Exactly, like the powder. Mm-hmm. And what we actually do in Sri Lanka, right at source in the estates, and I got to witness it at our Craighead estate, is we have these amazing sorting machines, and they go through and they essentially just shake the tea, and what ends up happening is it sorts all the different leaves. So you get your large ones like we have here. You get your FBOP, right here. And this is actually an interesting thing too. I've actually got 2 teas here that I can show you when we're talking about the tea region. So we have our low-grown FBOP, the broken pico, right? Mm-hmm. And this is from the low-grown region. So you can see fairly, dark. This is the exact same grade of tea as this one, which is the high-grown. But if you notice, if you look in, it's slightly lighter, right? Yeah. If you look at them kind of side by side, I know we're not in the best example. You can see there's a slight, almost marbled little bit of an effect in the higher grown teas, which is going to affect that flavor. So these, if I brewed you a tea with this and I brewed you a tea with this, it's the exact same tea leaf, it's the exact same grade, but the flavor is going to be completely different, and that's because of where it's grown. One's high grown and one's low grown. But what we find, especially today, is there's a huge effort to create some efficiencies, and we've got these amazing machinery that's available, and one of the things that's been happening in the tea industry is they've started to use this method called CTC, which is crush, tear, curl. And essentially what that is, they get these machines, they crush it, they tear it, they curl it. And when you mentioned the granulars earlier before, that's essentially what we're talking about, because when we get with a CTC method of tea, you almost get these little granulars of tea. They look like almost little pellets, right? Yeah. And you can get pellets of this size, you can get the dust, but you don't get that variety because you can't actually get those larger leaf teas. So for instance, with us, you can get, which we've shown you, like our low grown, you can see this, right? I don't know, these very large leaves, mm-hmm. Or we can get the dust, right? Yeah. Which is here. And that's going to affect what kind of teas that we're looking for, right? For something like our Dilmah Extra Strength, we're going to put more tea in the tea bag because that's also going to affect the strength. But we're also going to be looking for a smaller leaf because we want that tea to get into the water and diffuse really, really well. Whereas when we're looking for some of those other teas, you're going to see some of those larger leaves. Even like our springtime oolong and ginger, which is the new one that we have in these biodegradable packs. It's a very large leaf and it's a gorgeous experience. I know one of the chefs we work with, which everyone from Dilmah would know, Peter Curavita, this is his favorite tea. He loves it for the flavor, but also just the sight. Like you see these large oolong, leaves, which is just beautiful from a tea experience. And that's what I think when you sent me those photos that you did for your pack, that I was just amazed at, is just how gorgeous the tea looked, right? Sprinkled on the top and infused in your cookies.
As the tea lover, it was something that I was looking for, and Dilmah actually exactly the right variety. The base of this tea and the smell of this tea, and just the visual aspect of it as well, was from someone who's a tea connoisseur. So I actually collect teas which in every country I travel to, well, not every country, but in the more tea sort of tea states or tea regions. And being from Bengal, that's sort of like the first tea houses, auction houses, started there in the 1860s. So the Bengal area and around that bay where Sri Lanka is, and then you have Darjeeling and Assam, and so the tea growing regions in Bangladesh as well, just right under those areas. Tea is such a big part of our way of life. So for me, it was really, really important to have a really great tea out there in the 21st century, like that oolong leaf and the way it folds and curls, the way it looks and smells as well, was a really important part of that sensory experience.
Yeah, I think, that's the thing that I found so amazing. I mean, I remember going to Sri Lanka, and we stayed at this beautiful hotel up in the Nuwara region, which is up in the high ground. And I remember getting asked, what you wanted for your like bed tea, So in the morning, they come and you get a tea when you wake up, and it's just all these little things about the culture. And now it's funny. I never thought I'd drink all these teas that I drink, but it's become part of my life.
Yeah.
I enjoy it, and I look for these different experiences. I mean, here in Melbourne, and I'll probably give a little shout out to this guy that I went to recently in, I think, Luther's Scoops. He's there in Brunswick West, but he did an Earl Grey and chocolate ice cream, and I had an opportunity to try it recently, and just amazing the way that you could get the flavors out. And it's being tea inspired and looking for these different ideas, these cocktails, these foods, but understanding the beauty that tea provides, because it provides the flavor, provides the antioxidants, the polyethanols, but also some amazing things. Like, we've recently undertaken some research on using tea as a rub. And, we found out that tea actually has the natural ingredients in tea actually help tenderize meat. So all of a sudden that opens up a whole new area of how to utilize tea as a spice, right? That not just as a beverage, right?
Tea smoking is also a very, very popular method of cooking, but something I hope to do with you or share with you very soon, maybe in 2022, is a beautiful dish which comes from, because Bengal has that very heavy culture of tea estates, is deep fried tea leaves. It's a really fantastic, I guess, dish, and I had never eaten it. I think I tried it about 7 or 8 years ago, and I was completely surprised by it. It's deep fried, sort of prawns in the shell with deep fried tea leaves, but it's something that I hope to share with you, Anton, because
Oh, that sounds gorgeous. You're talking my language. Anything with food,
yeah,
I'm all about it.
yeah, it's very,
Yeah.
because tea leaves have that slightly bitter aftertaste as well. But when you fry them, they almost become like chips. It's quite nice. I'm going to make it for you soon. But
Oh,
something I
I
wanted to yeah,
can't
something I
wait.
wanted to yeah, something I wanted to talk to you about was once we were chatting and once this was underway, and I tried the sort of different teas to make this rose spice tea, was the corporate social responsibility around what Dilmah does and how it supports the tea region. So I want you to tell us. I was completely, I guess it's just another layer of my journey with Dilmah, and why I really fell in love with this, working with you. So
No, I really appreciate that. It's something that's extremely close to my heart. I mean, I think it's the reason why I work for Dilmah. If you go back to the beginning, and I think you have to understand, what Dilmah really is you have Merrill J. Fernando, right? And young man in Sri Lanka, tea obviously huge export, right, for Sri Lanka, but he realized that the Sri Lankans weren't benefiting from the tea growing, and it would be the same in India, the subcontinent, right? All those regions, they weren't benefiting from the tea trade, right? Because of colonialism and everything that was happening, we had a lot of people coming in buying tea extremely cheap, going to Europe and selling it for huge amounts, and the profits were never being reinvested into the area. So Merrill, and it's been in the very fabric of our business, wanted to create a business that was a matter of human service. something that
Mm.
that made the world a better place for its employees, a better place for its inhabitants, the better place. And by inhabitants, I mean not just humans, but animals, insects,
Mm.
plants,
Yeah.
and just, kindness. And that's the thing. Kindness is really in the heart of every single thing that we do. And it's why
Yeah.
we've sort of tagged the whole cup of kindness. We want, when you're sharing a tea, you're sharing a cup of kindness. And I think that is very fabric of drinking tea in general, because tea always tastes better when you're sharing it with someone else, right? When you're sitting
Yeah.
down talking, similar to what we're doing, the tea tastes so much better because of the conversation and the people. And as a result, over the years, we've instituted a number of projects, and in the company charters and all, we have this written in where we actually donate 15% of our pre-tax profits there back into a number of different charitable foundations. So we have the MJF Foundation, we have Dilmah Conservation, and these are just from a non-business practice, right? These are just from helping those less fortunate. We have the Rainbow Center, for instance, which focuses on those that have children with special needs, where we help them and train them and actually work on providing them with opportunities. And I know I was lucky enough to visit there, and I got to meet Nipuna, who had a lasting effect on me. And I remember buying some coasters that he had made to help, I talk too much with my hands,
No, me too.
but to help develop that. Or we have the blind cricket tournament that we do. We recently, with COVID, up in the tea growing regions, and I think this is where really the crux is, in the tea growing regions, which are all in the north, very rural areas, we invest a lot into those regions to help those communities. So not only by ensuring that we're paying, the best wage that possible in the industry leading, but also by supporting them with schools, supporting them with hospitals. With COVID, we recently, and you would have seen this shared on our channels, we recently developed a new arm in the hospitals up there to help with the people when COVID was going. And we have scholarships. And Merrill, I think this is one of the things when we chatted with Merrill for his birthday last year that he was so proud to speak about is the scholarship fund that we have for those growing regions, where the children from those growing regions are provided opportunities and paid for their schooling and all that, to go all the way through their A levels. And we now have people even working with Dilmah or working outside of Dilmah that are lawyers and doctors and things that the opportunities would not necessarily have been for them without that support. And I think that is what is the crux of Dilmah is, we love tea, and we make tea, and we're passionate about tea, and tea is what we do, right? We don't, mix with a whole bunch of things. We're experts, the world authority on tea, but we're also the world authority on kindness. And that's kindness for people, but also and I have this lovely banner up here, but for conservation as well. Like, we've been, and this is something that I don't think we talk about enough, but we've been shipping carbon neutral to Australia for a number of years. And we're actually on track to be carbon negative by 2030. But this isn't done by purchasing carbon credits or things like that.
It's from your own company's belief systems. Absolutely. I think
Exactly.
for those viewers watching who haven't sort of don't know much about tea regions, they're very sensitive systems in themselves, and to preserve those tea regions, you do need companies like Dilmah to come in and really think of, like, Dilmah is such a big buyer of tea in that region, but to give back and preserve the way of life there. It is a very sensitive ecosystem. And like you were saying, something that really resonates with me is it's the people, but it's also everything else, the animals. I think elephant orphanages in the area, but just preserving that as a way of life. So tea is really a way of life, but tea plantations are also a way of life. And even when you were talking about picking the teas and how you didn't have the expertise, it's because that area and that expertise has been passed down from generation to generation. And we sit here on the other side of the world enjoying a really good blend and a really good cup of tea. But when you go back to the roots of it and the complicated history and logistics of how this tea actually ends up on our table, it is mind-blowing. So I really respect what you do, and I really respect that world of tea, because I think it's really on sort of people with that thought process and companies like Dilmah to make sure that exists for another generation.
And you're 100% right on that. It's such a respect for those people and the expertise they have and the nature. I mean, recently we've done a number of works to create nature corridors, for instance, within the tea growing regions, and smart tools, cameras and stuff put up on the tea gardens to ensure that we can still make sure that the biodiversity in there, and I mean from animals all the way down to the insects that are living in the water, right? We've worked with the University of Colombo to make sure that we have studies constantly going on to ensure that we keep that biodiversity. And without all of those things working in one, we don't get that blend of tea. And I think that's one of the things that is unique to Dilmah is inside this tea that we're drinking here, right? It's not just tea leaves, right? It's not just tea leaves. It's the expertise of the tea pickers. It's the biodiversity around there of the animals, the climate, the trees, the specific plants, the region that we spoke about, and the kindness, and all of that is what's packed into this. And that's why when you see us, and I know Simon, you mentioned earlier, he's done a few stuff for us talking about all the good stuff, right? That's all the good stuff that's packed into this tea. So not only are you drinking a tea that is delicious, right, and one of the best tasting, the finest tea from Ceylon, you're drinking a tea that's single origin, that comes from a specific tea growing estate, right? That has all that work put into, but also the support that comes in with everything, which just makes it so much of a better tea, packed with natural goodness, like the health benefits. It's amazing when you start to read up on what tea can do for you as a remedy for inflammation, and for mental health, for metabolism, for all of these things. And I think, from a marketing perspective in the tea industry, I think everybody thinks of, green tea, drink green tea to be healthy. But if you break it down, you have to think about what it is, those things that are going into those antioxidants, those polyphenols, and utilizing, the tea to go through. And one of the things you mentioned as well, which was the expertise, I'd love to just, explain a little bit on this as well. We employ so many people in the region to get the best possible health benefits, idea benefits. And one of the ranges that we're really proud of that we launched last year is actually our Rana range. And this range here, they have a number of them, and I've just picked a few here, but there's comfort, sleep, detox, and we've used sort of the Western names to explain what the purpose is. But what that actually has packed into it is 3,000 years of Ayurvedic medicine. So for those of you that don't know, and I do apologize because my team in Sri Lanka always laugh at me because my pronunciation is always wrong. But the Ayurvedic medicine is all those natural goodness. So the spices that are available in the region. So for instance, with our sleep tea that we have, right? This one has some honeybush in it, some Indian sarsaparilla, some gatucola, some harawaria, and it's about utilizing all of these natural ingredients and the expertise of the elders in the region. And we spoke about it, this history of tea that have been utilizing tea and spices for hundreds of years, right? To remedy all these things and providing and packing it into it and providing that authenticity back to the market.
Yeah. So I think that's exactly what it is. It's about what it is that you can capture, what it is, being able to communicate that as well to someone who's drinking a cup of tea, the sort of the logistics and the backlog into how it gets to our tables. So,
yeah.
And thank you for joining me today, especially on a Saturday morning, pulling you out of bed to talk tea. It's all like I love talking to you, and I think every time we've had a conversation on the phone, we've been chatting for over an hour about everything tea, not just tea itself, but I think the history of tea and everything that goes around tea and Dilmah. So thank you for creating this blend with me. It's been really, really special. I love this. I'm very, very proud of this. Is something that I don't need to make. I just pull out of the bag now, and I know that I've got my afternoon rose chai well, rose tea, rose spice tea, but also it's a special occasion and it's a celebrity tea. And I really, really hope that people enjoy this as much as I do.
I really thank you for having me anytime. I love talking tea. It's my favorite thing to do. I'm super passionate. But I really hope everyone gets a chance to go out and try your tea blend because it is absolutely smashing, amazing, and
Thank
you know, a great way to celebrate, you know, everything that there is about tea. And the only thing I'd recommend is buy it, get your friends over, mix it, cook it together because that's the best time around the table, you know, sitting on the couch, have a chat, and you know, share that kindness, especially with you know everything opening up now around Australia. It's time for all of us to get back together with our friends and our family and enjoy a cuppa the way that it was meant to be enjoyed.
Yeah. Thank you. And I can't wait to talk more tea with you.
I can't wait as well. Thank you so much, Kishwar, and thank you for everyone that tuned in. And if anyone has any questions, you know, feel free, always reach out. We're more than happy to talk tea with absolutely anyone. So thank you.
Take care.
All right, see you. Bye now.
Bye.